Hello everybody, my name is Michael and welcome to 𝗧𝗓𝗘, your YouTube channel for automation, coding, and more. In this video I show you how to bring color to your boring-looking Excel files using Python. This video covers various use cases, for example, how to color specific cells based on their values, or how to highlight an entire column based on its name. Maybe you want to color an entire row based on the value of a specific column, or you don't want to highlight anything. But you want your Excel spreadsheet to look more readable to the human eye. In this case, you can convert your Excel spreadsheet to this alternating color style. Okay, let's start with the first case, how to color individual cells based on their values. First, we need to import the load_workbook function from Openpyxl. In the next step, we will open our Excel workbook. For this purpose, we create a variable that contains the absolute file path to the Excel file. Then we use the load_workbook function and pass the Excel file path as an input parameter to open the workbook. Once the workbook is loaded, we need to activate the worksheet. I've prepared an Excel file with client data. It contains various information such as name, gender, age, nationality, and many more. Since there is only one worksheet in this Excel file, I don't need to specify it. If your Excel file contains more than one worksheet, you can select the worksheet by the name. For example, you want to work with the worksheet Table 2. For this, you write WB Table 2 in square brackets. Okay, let's continue with the next step. We need to get the index of our desired column. Let's take a look on our Excel sheet again. For example, we want to color all cells in the gender column that have the value female. For this purpose, we loop through the cells of the first row to find the column gender. Let's print the variable cell to see what we get from this loop. As you can see, we get a cell object for every cell in the row that contains a value. Now we can use the cell object and check if its value is equal to gender. For this, we use the method internal_value in an if statement. If the cell value is equal to gender, we save the index of the column into a variable and break the loop. We get the column index of the cell by using the method call_idx. Since the gender column is the fourth column in our Excel sheet, we expect the number 4 to be stored as an index into the call_index variable. Let's check this with a print command. We get index 4 printed out. In the next step, we want to color all cells of the column gender whose value is female. For this, we loop through all rows of the column and check their values. We can do this with the iter_rows method of the worksheet object. This for loop will go row by row through all the cells that contain a value. Because the first row contains only the column name, we want to start from the second row. We can realize that by setting the parameter mean_row to 2, and we also want only to iterate through the column gender. To achieve this, we set the parameters mean_call and max_col to the index of the desired column. The index of our column gender is stored in the variable col_index, so we use this variable for the parameters. The line of code is very long here. For that reason, I write the parameters one below the other. Let's print the variable cells_in_row to check if the iter_rows function really loops only through the cells of the fourth column. And yes, it does. We get a tuple of all cells for every row. Because we loop only through a single column, there is only one cell object in each tuple. In the next step, we access the cell object of the tuple using cells_in_row and 0 in square brackets. We use an if statement to check if the value of the cell equals female. If the cell's value is equal to female, we color the entire cell. To do this, we need first to import pattern fill from Openpyxl.styles. This is necessary to be able to color Excel cells. Now we can use the fill method on the cell object. With the class pattern fill, we can change a cell's background color. 2 parameters need to be specified for the pattern fill class. We set the parameter pattern type equal to solid. The second parameter FG_color is used to specify the color. The color must be given as hex code. You can get the hex code of every color very easily. Just search for color picker. Here you can select every color you want by using the slider and clicking on the color area. Then copy the hex code and paste it into the pattern fill function. I chose a red color. In the final step, we save the workbook. Saving the workbook is mandatory, otherwise the changes will not be retained in the worksheet. To do this, we type wb.save and pass the absolute path of the Excel file, which is saved in the variable Excel_file as parameter. The code is finished now. Let's take a look into the Excel worksheet after running the code. As you can see, all cells in the column gender that contain the value female are highlighted in red. You can highlight every value in every cell in the same way. You just need to specify the column name and the value in the code. Okay, let's continue with the next use case. How can we color an entire column based on the column name? For example, we want to highlight the entire column occupation. For this purpose, we just need to modify our code a little bit. First, we change the column name to occupation to get the index of this column. Then we remove the if statement here because we want to color all the cells of the column independent of their values. For the coloring of the entire column, I would like to change the color to yellow. To do this, I copy the hex code from the color picker into the pattern fill function. Let's run the code and open the Excel file. As you can see, the entire column is highlighted in yellow, but unfortunately the borders were also colored. The grid within the column is not visible anymore. We can fix this by coloring the borders after the cell is colored. For that purpose, we need first to import border, side, and border _thin from openpyxl.styles.borders. Then we can set the color of the border. We create an object of the side class and save it in a new variable, border_color. This class object gets two parameters. The parameter border_style gets the value border_thin. The second parameter is for the color, which must be specified as a hex code. Here I am using the hex code of the light gray color of the Excel grid. Next, we create a border class object. Let's name it border. Here we need to set the appearance of all four borders of the cell. The side class object border_color will be provided to the parameters left, right, top, and bottom. Now we can use the border method of the cell object and set the value equal to border. This ensures that the borders are set according to the specification we made in the border object. Let's run the code again and take a look at the Excel sheet. Do you see the difference? The column is highlighted yellow and the grid within the highlighted column is visible now. This looks much better. Let's continue with the next use case. How can we color an entire row based on the value of a specific column? This time we choose an example with numerical values. We want to highlight all people who are not older than 30 years. For this, we need to make some modifications in our code. First, we change the column name to age to get the index of the age column. Then we need to iterate through the column and find all rows whose values are not higher than 30. To do this, we add an if statement that checks if the numeric value matches our conditions. If a cell was found, we save the row number into a list. For this, we create the variable row_list with an empty list as initial value. Now we can add the row number to the list with the append method. The row of the cell can be obtained through the .row method of the cell object. In the next step, we will color all the rows that were added to row_list. For this, we use a for loop to iterate through the list. Then we use another for loop to iterate through all cells that are present within the row. And like in our examples before, the fill method and the border method are applied to the cell objects. For this example, I changed the color to green. Now let's run the code and check if the rows have been highlighted. Nice! All clients that are not older than 30 years old have been highlighted. The entire row is colored in green. Let's move on to our final use case. How can we convert this Excel table to this colored Excel table with alternating row colors? I removed the unnecessary steps from our code. Only the steps for opening the workbook, setting the border colors, and saving the workbook remained. We start with setting the colors. We specify 3 different colors that will be saved in 3 separate variables. For the header, we choose a dark orange color. The first color for the rows is white, and the second color is light orange. In the next step, we use these colors to color the rows in an alternating style. For this, we iterate through all rows by using the worksheet iter_rows method. This gives us a tuple for every row. The tuple contains all cell objects of the row. We access the first cell of the tuple and check its row number with an if statement. If the row number equals 1, it is the header. In this case, we create the variable color and set its value equal to color_header. The variable color will be needed in a later step. If the row number equals not 1, we check if the row number is an even number. We can do this by using the modulo operator. If the modulo of the row number and 2 equals 0, the row number is even. In this case, we set the variable color equal to color_1. In all other cases, the variable color will be set to color_2. In the next step, we iterate through all the cells in the row, and like in our examples before, we apply the fill method and the border method to the cell objects. But here we use the variable color for the parameter fgcolor as input. The code is finished, let's execute it. After running the code, we get this beautiful Excel table as a result. This brings us to the end of the video. You are now able to automate the process of coloring Excel files. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more content on the topic of how to automate Excel with Python, please subscribe to the channel. More videos will follow.